February 2, 2022 marks KITE's 30th anniversary. It has been an extraordinary ride highlighted in part by people who have made an indelible mark in KITE's journey. Together with them, what was started by two graduate students at the Ateneo de Manila University in 1992 as a school-based activity has grown into a respected organization whose inspiring mission continues to bring hope and happiness to countless chronically ill children and their families in the country. Join us in recognizing 30 individuals whose unceasing support have made it possible for KITE to trailblaze and achieve significant milestones. As we celebrate and give thanks for our 30 years and for these 30 individuals, we look forward to the future with them and with others, dreaming bigger dreams and ensuring that the light that brings happiness to children and their families will shine even brighter.
Icar Castro and I founded KITE in February 1992. We founded KITE as a response to a need to provide psychosocial support to children with cancer. We found the light to guide pediatric cancer patients and their families as they navigate through their hospital experience. And this light is what we call the KITE Child Life Services. All throughout these 30 years, KITE, together with our medical partners, donors, volunteers, and KITE team, have brought light and happiness to children in hospitals, and we will continue to do so for many more years to come. As we celebrate our 30th anniversary this 2022, we hope to increase further the awareness on KITE's Child Life Services. Let us together lighten the child's life in the hospital.
I am Angie Sievert Fernandez, and I have been managing the KITE Child Life Services for the past 10 years. I oversee the implementation of the services in our partner hospitals nationwide. I started off as a volunteer in KITE over 2 decades ago, playing games, spending time, reading stories to children and teens at the East Avenue Medical Center. I lost touch with KITE for a while, and around 2009 came back as an intern and as a researcher. And finally in 2011, joined as a full-time staff. It has been quite a journey for me. Child Life Services. I think it's a big term and often it's hard to explain. But in a nutshell, for me, Child Life Services are really the ways that make chronically ill children happier, feel more supported, and better adjusted to the situation that they are in. And these are the same ways that make our hospitals less scary, more child-friendly, and a brighter place for our children. These ways include, among others, the various forms of play, emotional support, and partnerships with the children, their families, and the medical team. We need more child life advocates who can spread the word of how child life services bring joy and hope to our chronically ill children and their families. We need more child life champions among our doctors, our nurses, and allied medical professionals so we can grow child life services in more hospitals in the country. We need more parents who have been supported by Child Life Services to speak of their experiences so others may seek and wish for the same. We need to reach more children, and we have to never tire of working towards making hospitals a better place for them. Over the past 30 years, KITE has grown and evolved, and it has provided various services and support to children and their families, to medical professionals, to hospitals, and to other stakeholders. We celebrate these and give thanks for all that has been and for all who have journeyed with us. As we move forward to the next 30 and more years ahead, may we continue to share of ourselves, to bring joy, hope, and care to the children we serve. May we continue to ensure support and connectedness amongst each other. May we never lose sight of the reason why KAITH started. Always, in all ways, for the children, to bring hope, happiness, and change. Happy 30th anniversary, KAITH.
Good afternoon, everyone. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. I am Fatima Gurley Garcia Lorenzo, co-founder and executive director of Kite Foundation, and I am your moderator for this afternoon's event. We're so excited to present our webinar entitled Close the Care Gap, a conversation between two generations of cancer survivors. We're holding this webinar to celebrate World Cancer Day and Kite Foundation's 30th anniversary this 2022. Let us begin our program with a short prayer.
Lord God, look down upon us this day, this hour, regardless of what has gone before or what will come after. Give us the grace to consecrate this time entirely to you, all the actions of our body and soul. May all the thoughts that come to us be true. May all the things to which our hearts go out be beautiful with the beauty of God. May all the things we want be good. Give us the light to see your will, the grace to love it, and the courage and strength to do it. Above all, help us to present this webinar so that all those who are involved in it and all those who watch it will become closer to you. We ask you this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you po. Thank you so much. I have now the honor to introduce our speaker who will give the welcome remarks. Ms. Melanie Samson is the Senior Manager on Capacity Building of the Union for International Cancer Control. Melanie holds a PhD in Global Health Law, a master's degree in International Law, as well as a master's in Public Health in Global Health Leadership. With a special focus on right-based approaches to public health, Melanie has an extensive academic and professional experience in and passion for access to medicines, quality of cancer care, and policy making at the national and global levels. As part of her work at UICC, Melanie is leading the development of the Patient Hook Mentoring Program, as well as the regionalization of capacity building activities. She also teaches a course in global health law and regulations at Sciences for Paris, completed a postdoctorate in global norms for health products, and has published a number of studies on the role of normative approaches in promoting global health and access to care in developing countries. Friends, Ms. Melanie Samson.
Good afternoon, Salamat from Geneva, Switzerland. I am very pleased and honored to say a few words today on behalf of the Union for International Cancer Control on the occasion of the unique event organized by the Kite Foundation on Close the Care Gap, conversation between two generations of cancer survivors. This is a very special year for World Cancer Day and for the cancer community, as we launch today the new 3-year campaign on Close the Care Gap, focusing on equity and social determinants of health for cancer patients. The first year of the campaign is all about better understanding, realizing the problem, but also the opportunities for greater equity for all people living with cancer. It's all about reflecting on the journey and all awareness and accompaniment, as well as support, including peer support, can mean more equity for patients, caregivers, and survivors. It's also all their voices can be a driver for change for others, not only at the systemic level, but also in each other's lives. That's why the conversation today on the intergenerational bringing together older and younger generations to share experience of the cancer journey from the personal,
from the
but also the
personal, but also the professional
and the
health
perspective
perspective
is essential.
is essential.
It will certainly be an opportunity to share knowledge and constitute a collective experience, as well as to share a light of hope for patients and survivors. Thank you very much to the Kite Foundation for such an inspiring initiative to celebrate World Cancer Day. I wish all speakers and participants a fruitful conversation. Thank you so much. Mabuhay.
Thank you, Melanie, for giving us an overview on the World Cancer Day's theme, Close the Care Gap. It is important to identify the challenges of patients living with cancer and address these in a whole of society, whole of government approach. And this is what this webinar is all about. Our goal is to highlight the cancer care gaps experienced by cancer survivors and offer realistic solutions from a civil society organization's perspective. At this point, I wish to call in now to the virtual stage KITE's Partner Relations Manager, Ms. Kai Rivera, and co-moderator to introduce our speakers. Over to you, Kai.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fatima. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so honored and privileged to introduce our speakers for today. Of course, starting with no less than the president of Kite Foundation, Inc., Ms. Malu de Buncio. Ms. Malu de Buncio is currently Man Smith and Fielders, Inc., Chief Business Development Strategist, having previously served in Avon Worldwide in a span of 20 years as Executive Director for Regional and Business Development in the Asia Pacific Regional Office, opening Avon in Vietnam, General Manager of Avon Cosmetics Inc. in the Philippines, President Director in Indonesia, and Business Development Manager at Avon Pacific Regional Office and Avon Products Manufacturing in the Philippines. She is an active management and business consultant for some of the country's most prominent corporations. Ms. Malu completed a Bachelor of Arts in Communication Arts at Assumption College and the Business Management Program at the Asian Institute of Management. She has been a recipient of a number of business and management awards throughout her career. Ladies and gentlemen, my pleasure, Ms. Malu de Buncio.
Thank you, Ate Kai. I'm retired now, but I remember how when I was working with Avon, I used to think to myself, it's a wonder that I don't have cancer. Kasi high stress yung trabaho ko. I used to work Monday to Sunday. For those of you who don't know Avon, it's a direct selling organization. So yung mga dealers namin, they were only available to motivate and to meet on Saturdays and Sundays. So that was my life, Saturday and Sundays, doing field work, and then Monday to Friday in the office and dealing with New York, which our head office. And they were always asking for more. And I was very, very stressed. Towards the end of my career, I was doing regional work. I was traveling. Minsan, I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would say, where am I? Nasaan ba ako? I wouldn't remember anymore kasi 2 days here, 3 days there, 1 day here, travel. It was a high stress job. And I always asked myself, I used to think it's a wonder I don't have cancer because I have the genes in my family. My mother had cancer, my cousins had cancer, my uncles had cancer. But my cancer only came out when I turned 50. That's a magic number for when your body begins to break down. So 50 ako, bagong retired, I decided to retire. That's another story. Why did I retire so early? But I began to ballroom dance. Parang that became my passion and I became a competitor. And one day I felt a lump on the side near my breast, my left breast. And I asked my brother, who is a doctor, do you think this is cancer? Kasi alam ko, we had cancer in our family. And he said, masakit ba? And I said, indeed, yes. And he said, well, if it's cancer, normally it doesn't hurt if it's in the breast. Pero pa-check mo yan because our mother has cancer and it runs in our family talaga. So I had it checked. I went to a doctor. I went to one of the best doctors, a breast cancer doctor, Diana Kua. And she said, let me look at that. She said, no, it's too big to be a cancer. Pero she had a machine, or she was able to inject me, aspirate underneath. She looked under and she saw a tiny, tiny, tiny lump. And she said, that looks like it's cancer. So I like to say that dancing saved my life, because if I had not retired with the high stress, I never had time to do my checkup. But with dancing, I had a new partner, and he kept, I don't know if you know it, he kept pulling me tighter and I kept pushing him far away. And because of that, I developed that big lump. It was actually my muscle. So I was diagnosed with cancer, and tuloy-tuloy lang. My personality is very strong. So medyo clueless ako. I didn't really know how chemo would be. I didn't really know much. And I did everything that the doctor told me to do. Laban lang. It was my husband who was affected. You know, he said to me, I always thought that you would take care of me. Ngayon, baliktad na. I am the one taking care of you. And he really, really had a difficult time dealing with it. So I went through the chemo. This was in 2004. So I had an aggressive cancer. And yung main concern ko was yung buhok ko. I kept making tawad with the doctor na, can we have a milder chemo para my hair would not get affected? And well, he was willing to try and help me. Kaya lang when the results of the KISH test, or the FISH test, which measures how strong your cancer is on a scale of 1 to 6, halos 6 na ako, the strongest. So he said, wala na, your hair is not important. We have to make sure that we stop this. So I went through my chemo, I went through my radiation, and I survived. And I kept dancing. So people used to say to me, you're so brave. But actually, I wasn't brave. Clueless lang ako. And I never felt that I was going to die. So parang tuloy lang. Well, anyway, 3 years passed, may scare, but it was negative. 10 years passed, I was very happy. Kasi di ba sabi nila, 10 years, that means wala na. 11th year, bumalik yung cancer ko. And this time, it moved from one side to the other. Actually, no. It became stronger in one side kasi bilateral ako with my cancer. This time, they had to, they couldn't do the chemo anymore, and they couldn't do radiation anymore, and they had to do a mastectomy. And I was afraid, really, really afraid. Kasi alam ko na, I knew how difficult it would be. Not like the first time na wala kang alam, tuloy-tuloy lang. So I was afraid. But I was able to survive it. It was painful. And this time, my husband, from being afraid, became the strong one. Bumaliktad na yung sitwasyon. He was the one who was giving me moral support. I didn't have to take care of him, which takes me to my learnings. What did I learn through this journey? I'm still battling with when the cancer will come back, because I took a test of my genes and I really have the same one as Angelina Jolie. So in fact, my doctor, when I was talking to her before, I said, I know I will die of cancer. Ang sabi niya, no, you won't die of cancer. Pero nung bumalik after 11 years, she said, and there was no real treatment for me anymore, except for a drug that wasn't really proven to be preventive. Sabi niya sa akin, well, okay, if you don't want to take that, sabi niya, let's just leave it for the next time it comes. Umamin na siya that it was going to come back. So how do you deal with that? I just move forward. It's not easy. You put it at the back of your mind. And in the last 6 months, I actually had another scare. Tumaas yung calcium levels ko. And we still cannot figure out why my calcium levels are so high. I've gone through tests. And when your calcium levels are high, it could be that nag-metastasize na yung cancer mo sa bones. Pero at this point, wala pa. Pero it's unknown, hindi natin alam. So my learning through my journey of my cancer is that attitude is so important. Really important. Attitude is everything. I saw the difference between the first time when I was not afraid and the second time when I was afraid. And this other learning is it's not a personal journey. It is a journey. Cancer is a journey of your friends and your family. They journey with you, and maybe they feel even more parang they have no control talaga. All they can do is to help you, to make you feel better, to support you. But beyond that, wala silang control. So in spite of everything, I feel blessed. I thank the Lord for giving me a very strong personality to be able to fight my cancer, to be able to fight the thoughts that baka it will come back, or when is it going to come back, yun. And I feel blessed because I have the resources to be able to deal with my cancer. I've been able to think of my life. I've been able to move forward with my life. I've been able since I retired to become a dancing champion. I've been able to work with Kite Foundation. Alam mo, they say there are 3 things that really make a difference in your life. 1 is to have a purpose, 2 is to have passion, and 3 is to give back. And that's what my life is about now, having purpose, having passion, and being able to give back. And I thank Kite for giving me the opportunity to share my knowledge, to share my passion, by giving back through the foundation to children with cancer, for those who have less resources than I. So that's my story. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mama Lu. Miss Malu is so beautiful, with or without Avon, in and out. She's really very beautiful. Okay, our next speaker is one of our child life advocates and donors, Mr. Edwin Toralba. Edwin Toralba retired early last year after a career mainly in human resources management and training in the Philippines and in the US. After over 20 years of combining employment and community work in California, Edwin said that helping poor children with cancer and long term illnesses is his main advocacy in his current retirement. Through his involvement with Kite Foundation for over 7 years, he acknowledged having learned, grown, and found fulfillment in giving and serving. Edwin and his wife Jing started supporting Kite's Adopt a Patient program in 2014. Through monthly donations, Kite patients and their families get assistance in obtaining much needed treatments such as radiation and chemotherapy, tests, and even transportation to and from the hospital. Edwin shares opportunities to help with family and friends who have been very responsive with donations for Kite's regular programs and special activities. Alongside his focus on supporting Kite and kids with cancer, Edwin says he tries to stay active in his retirement by putting conscious efforts to maintain balance in his regular activities that includes hiking, meeting up with relatives and friends, participating in daily and weekly online prayers with co-alumni from the seminary, supporting Filipino American Association activities in his parish church, and of course, vacationing with his wife in European river cruises. Sana all. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Edwin Toralba.
Thank you, Miss Kai. Here's my story. It was late October 2016, 15 years ago, at my work here in San Jose, California, when I got the phone call from my doctor telling me of the result of the MRI on the lump on my right thigh. My doctor initially thought it was just a fatty benign tumor. but it turned out to be malignant. It was cancer called sarcoma. I was 55 years old at that time. My first reaction was really disbelief. Although my sister had been diagnosed 7 years earlier and had been treated for breast cancer, my brother passed away from colorectal cancer just 2 years earlier at age 51. But I never thought I would get cancer. Immediately, lots of troubling thoughts entered my mind. How was I going to tell my wife? How would she take it? And how about my mother, thousands of miles away in Canada? What is this so-called rare form of cancer, and how is it treated? Will I endure radiation and chemotherapy? What are my chances of survival? Will I die? My wife took the news over breakfast the following day rather calmly, or apparently so. She found an excuse to go upstairs and returned a few minutes later. I never asked, but I think she needed that short time alone to cry in private. She did maintain calm throughout the entire experience, and for this, I was truly grateful to have a very strong wife. The next episode of anxiety was my first visit to the oncologist and surgeon at Stanford Hospital in Palo Alto, California. I had read that he is one of the top specialists on this disease in the country, and since his practice was at Stanford, one of the leading hospitals in the US, I felt I could not be in a better place for treatment. But still, this amputation thing was troublesome and dominating my mind. I had read in the internet that amputation, removal of the entire leg, was the treatment for this type of cancer. So the first thing I asked the doctor was, "Are you going to amputate my leg?" His response took a very heavy load off my mind and emotion. He said, "We don't do that anymore. You have two options. One, we remove only the tumor from your muscle. The second option is to remove the entire muscle where the tumor resides. You'll still be able to walk because the other three major muscles in your thigh will compensate for the one that we will be removing." After considerable thought and weighing the two options, I decided to go for the more radical surgery, which is to have the entire muscle removed. The surgery went well, I was told. I sewed a very long incision held by 33 staples or stitches along the length of my thigh from the top of my knee up to close to my crotch. I knew that the surgery was only the start of a series of treatment, including radiation and the dreaded chemotherapy. My doctor visited me the day following the surgery, and after giving my wife the post-surgery instructions, he said, "Edwin is cured. He may go home anytime he is ready." My wife couldn't believe what she heard. She had to ask the doctor what he meant. He said the tumor was well encapsulated, and since the entire muscle was removed, radiation and chemotherapy were no longer needed. My doctor's post-surgery instructions included regular MRI tests and chest X-rays. We were told that the type of cancer I had may recur in my guts or in my lungs within about an 8-year period. With God's grace, it's been 15 years since my surgery and things seems to be okay. I did get another cancer 8 years after, but it was in my thyroid. I had surgery for this and am now on regular monitor and medication. The past 15 years were not without worries and anxiety. I remembered my sister, who was a nurse and eventually a cancer victim, advising me to be watchful and take care of myself. He reminded me, once a cancer patient, always a cancer patient. I knew she did not mean to scare me. She just wanted to make sure that I face and accept reality. My reality called for a change in lifestyle, proper diet, and exercise to keep physically healthy, regular physical checkups, avoid stress, appreciate people around me, keep praying in words as well as in deeds, including helping other people with cancer, especially children who are poor. I must admit that thoughts of cancer recurring still linger, but I learned to prevent them from running my life by trying to live life to the fullest, physically, socially, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, surrendering everything to the love of God and the care of our Blessed Mother. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sir Edwin, for sharing your story. I am extremely proud, happy to introduce two brave individuals who, at a very young age, were able to combat and conquer cancer. Ivy Brand Sibal. Ivy Brand Sibal was diagnosed with acute lymphocytic leukemia at the age of 16. Her father passed away when she was 12, leaving Ivy and her two siblings under the care of her mother, who holds a job as a housekeeper. Despite the challenges, Ivy turned these struggles into inspiration to achieve her goals. She was a consistent honor student in senior high school, received multiple awards in sports writing Filipino category competitions from 2016 to 2018, both in municipal and division levels. Currently, she is in second year college, taking up degree in Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering. Wow, I hope to I'm looking forward to call you Engineer Sibal someday, Ivy Bren. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Ivy Bren Sibal.
I am Ivy Brand po, and elementary pa lang po ako, nakahiligan ko na ang paglalaro ng volleyball. And eventually, naging varsity po ako sa bawat paaralan na aking pinasukan. So dinala ko po yun hanggang high school. Maaga po ako naulila sa ama, kaya maaga po ang namulat sa akin kung gaano po kahirap ang buhay at kung paano ito labanan sa pamamagitan ng pagtitiyaga at pagiging determinado. Akala ko malakas na ako, but there was a time na sinubok ang katapangan ko. It was when na-diagnose ako with cancer, acute lymphocytic leukemia to be specific, at the age of 16. Teenager na ako that time. So, hindi nila dinadirect sa akin before, pero hindi nila alam na nag-research na ako over the internet kung ano ba yon. At doon ako na-inform at nalaman ko na mataas yung survival rate at marami ring mga survivors. And eventually, nung nag-chemo na ako to stop the spread of cancer cells, na-meet ko yung mga taong survivor ng sakit na meron ako. So, I was full of hope and positivity at first, but I was wrong. Hindi pala ganun kadali si chemo. Naranasan ko na kahit gaano ka pala katapang, ipaparamdam niya sa'yo yung fears and doubts sa sistema mo. Kasi paano na lang kung hindi mag-respond na maayos yung katawan ko sa mga gamot na pumapasok sa akin? At what if mag-relapse din ako anytime? Hindi ko alam, hindi ako sure. Pero linabanan ko yung mga tanong na yon na sumasagi lagi sa aking isipan. May time na mararamdaman mo sa sarili mo na hinang-hina ka na, pero wala kang choice kundi bumangon at magtungo sa hospital kasi kailangan mong magpagamot. Nakakaphobia kasi, nakakatakot yung mapopobia ka dun sa injection, sa needle, na what if hindi one shot ni doc yung pag-insert sa IV ko, or si ate na medtech or kuya na medtech na tutusok sa akin for laboratory. Especially yung intratical, yung spinal tap, hindi rin ako sure kung one shot ba ni doc yung pagtusok niya sa spinal ko. Mararamdaman ko na pumapasok at lumalabas yung needle sa likod ko. Nakakapanghina, masakit, at iiyak ka na lang, wala kang choice kundi gawin iyon. Tapos darating din yung time na mahihirapan kang kumain, nararamdaman mo na susuka ka na lang, kahit na sa time nung na-diagnose ako, nandoon yung gamot na anti-suka na para hindi ka na masuka. Pero kasi medyo pricey din siya, there were times na hindi namin siya afford, hindi na siya kaya ng financial resources namin, kaya pinagtitiisan ko na lang na hindi mag-take nun at mag-chemotherapy na. So, ang sakit lang sa part na gusto mong kumain pero hindi ka makakain. And another thing, yung access sa nutritious food. Since hindi kami mayaman at yung pera talaga ipinagkakasya lang namin sa araw-araw, tapos dumadagdag pa yung treatment ko. Kung ano lang yung available na mailuluto ni mama for specific meal, yun lang yung kakainin ko, at hindi namin mapoprovide na merong fish, vegetables, fruits, and meat na nandun sa meal na yun, yung complete meal. Tapos yung transportation, especially this time of pandemic, we are afraid na makakuha kami ng virus from other people kasi given the situation na immunocompromised yung mga cancer patients. Pero sinusuong namin yung takot na yun at pumupunta pa rin kami sa hospital para magpagamot. And last, since athlete ako, dumaan sa akin na nagkaroon ako ng insecurities kasi kahit na nagkikimo ako, bald ako, naka-face mask lang, papasok pa rin ako sa school. Pero yung mararamdaman mo na tinitignan ka ng mga classmates mo na hindi mo sigurado kung anong iniisip nila tungkol sa'yo. Kasi friendly ako dati at kahit sino talaga linalapitan ko, nakikipagkaibigan ako. Pero nung time na yon, hindi ko alam paano ko lalapitan yung ibang tao kasi hindi ako sure. And nakaka-insecure na gusto ko sanang maglaro at maging athlete ulit. Pero hindi ko magawa kasi nagkikimo pa rin ako that time. And last, hindi ko talaga makakalimutan yung pauwi na kami ni mama galing hospital. And nakita ko nung nagbayad siya dun sa tricycle driver na pinagsakyan namin pauwi, na nakita ko yung wallet niya. Barya na lang yung nakita ko. At conscious na ako that time kasi teenager na ako. Alam ko yung burden na dinadala niya. Knowing na meron akong treatment na naka-schedule sa susunod, kulang yung financial resources namin. Hindi namin alam kung saan kami kukuha. But thank God, He provided everything na kailangan ko. And binigay niya sa akin yung mga taong kailangan ko, especially Kite Foundation, na ipinaramdam nila sa akin kung gaano nila ako kamahal at binigyan nila ako ng pag-asa. And minotivate nila ako na maging matatag lang at lumaban lang kasi there is life after this. And chemo was tough, yes, but it has a lot of things to offer na mga lessons, realizations sa taong makakaranas nito. And I think that was the most beautiful part of having a cancer. Yung marirealize mo sa bawat araw na dumadaan sa buhay mo. Every little things, mapipil mo talaga na napaka-blessed mo. And magiging thankful and grateful ka na lang sa araw-araw na lumilipas sa'yo kasi thank God, nandito ka pa rin, lumalaban at gagaling ka. And I think yun na yung dapat kong i-look up ngayon, na kung ano pa yung magagawa ko dito sa mundo and ano yung magiging impact ko sa ibang tao, especially sa mga taong makakaranas ng napagdaanan ko. Na para masabi ko totally na hindi sayang yung buhay na ipinagkaloob pa ng Diyos sa akin. Yun lang po. Thank you.
Oh my God, Ivy Bren, you caught me off guard. Thank you very much for sharing your story with us. And last but not the least, definitely not the least, our next speaker is Mr. Char Mercado. Char Mercado was diagnosed with osteosarcoma, or otherwise known as cancer of the bone, in 2007 at the age of 13. Unfortunately, due to complications, the doctors had to amputate his leg, to stop the cancer cells from spreading. After surviving osteosarcoma, Charm studied a short course under the Alternative Learning System. He finished a technical course in computer hardware servicing, AutoCAD, and during his free time, he works as a computer technician. Currently, he is Kite's Child Life Coordinator at the Philippine Orthopedic Center. Charm has shown that despite his disability, he is able to motivate pediatric patients who are physically challenged like him. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so proud to introduce Mr. Char Mercado.
Mercado. At nagsimula po ang story ko bilang isang batang mahilig mag-skate at maglaro. Way back 2007 at ako ay 13 years old that time. Yung usual lang na ginagawa ko matapos mag-aral is gagawin yung homework, then after nun is mag-skateboard na. So yung cycle ng buhay ko ay paulit-ulit lang. Ganun lang yung nagiging buhay ko noon. And gumawa ako ng isang trick, which is yung mag-flip ako sa isang hagdan. And nagkamali ako sa trick and tumama yung tuhod ko sa may hagdan. And hindi ko siya pinansin kasi as a skater, no pain, no gain. So part siya ng pagiging skater mo, yung matumba ka, masaktan. And ganun lang yung ginawa ko. But after 1 week, lagi nang sumasakit yung ulo ko and hindi ko na alam kung saan nanggagaling yung sakit. Sinabihan ko yung tita ko, which is si Nanang, yung nagpalaki sa akin since birth. At sabi ko sa kanya na kung pwede magpa-check up kami dahil hindi ko na kaya, hindi na ako nakakapasok sa school. And sabi niya sa akin, sige, magpa-check up tayo. And pumunta kami sa James Gordon Hospital sa Olongapo and nag-conduct kami ng X-ray, CBC, and lahat naman normal. So nagtataka yung doktor bakit normal naman lahat. Masakit yung paa ko, wala naman siyang fracture. So sabi sa akin ng doktor, we cannot diagnose ano yung nararamdaman mo ngayon. So what we can do is to refer you to other hospital para dun tingnan if ano yung nararamdaman mo kasi kulang din kami sa medical equipment para ma-diagnose ka. And then the doctor refer us to Philippine Orthopedic Center, which is dito sa may Quezon City, and nag-conduct kami ng laboratory, X-ray, CT scan, and yung isa na bago sa paningin ko, which is the biopsy. And sobrang hirap nun kasi parang hindi masyadong tumatalab yung biopsy mo nun na kukunan ka. Pero kinaya naman ang lahat. And then after 2 weeks, dun ko nakita na parang lumabas na yung result and the doctor said na meron akong osteosarcoma, which is known as cancer of the bone. So sobrang hirap for me to accept that time kasi 13 years old ako and hindi nandoon ka pa lang nag-uumpisa ka pa lang mangarap. And sobrang hirap that time kasi way back 2007 and 2008 pag sinabing cancer patient or cancer, meron kang 50-50 chances of survival. Parang sobrang hirap na tanggapin sa akin knowing na wala kaming idea dati what is cancer. Kasi wala kaming internet connection. Way back 2007, 2008, kailangan mo pang mag-access sa mga computer shop just to know yung ano yung situation mo. And wala kaming ganun. Wala kami ng mga internet connection. And sobrang hirap natanggapin yung part na yun. Dumating sa point na hindi na ako nakakausap because of nalaman ko yung kalagayan ko. And the doctor said na after ng 1 chemo, doon namin malalaman kung ano yung gagawin namin sa'yo. Kung anong operation yung gagawin. And after ng isang chemo, hindi lumiit yung bukol ko sa paa, sa may tuhod. And sinabihan kami ng doctor na the only way na lang to survive this cancer is to amputate your right leg. Sobrang hirap para sa akin natanggapin na knowing na tatanggalan ka ng isang paa, isang skater, tapos tatanggalan ka ng ganun. Sobrang hirap para sa akin na tanggapin yun. Dumating sa point na hindi na ako nakakausap because of that. But pag nakikita ko yung parents ko or yung tita ko na naghihirap at umiiyak, doon ko na parang nasabi sa sarili no, kailangan ko talagang tatagan yung loob ko kasi sa kanila ako umuhugot ng lakas ng loob. At nag-undergo ako ng operation in chemotherapy and thankful ako sa mga tao na nasa paligid ko kasi sila yung nagbigay sa akin ng kalakasan. Kahit yung isang org na laging tumutulong sa amin para mabigyan kami ng lakas ng loob, which is the Kite Foundation din. Binigyan niya kami ng lakas ng loob para maging positive sa buhay at lalong ipakita na hindi ka dahil meron kang sakit na cancer, mawawalan ka na nito. Knowing na kulang kami sa resources din that time and wala kami mapagkunan ng financial assistance din and medical assistance. Pero God will provide, ika nga nila. At doon ko nakita na sobrang thankful talaga ako sa mga tao sa paligid ko. After ng aking chemotherapy and napagdaanan ng lahat, na I am working sa Kite as child life coordinator, and kung dati si Kuya Charm yung binibigyan nila ng lakas ng loob, ngayon ako naman yung nagbibigay ng lakas ng loob para sa mga bata dahil mag-relapse man o bumalik man yung sakit ko, alam ko na meron silang Kuya Charm na nakilala sa buhay nila. Yun lang po.
Maraming salamat, Charm, for sharing your story. You never cease to amaze us. Thank you, Charm. Now, to lead the panel discussion, may I call back the Executive Director of Kite Foundation, Ms. Maria Fatima Garcia Lorenzo.
Thank you, Ate Kai. Grabe, ang punong-puno yung puso ko, and I'm sure maraming na-inspire sa mga kwento ng ating mga speakers. So if you have any comments, insights, or questions, please write it on the chat box so we can read your comments and questions later. Okay? So sulat nyo lang dyan, tapos babasahin namin yan mamaya. So may I now call back our 4 speakers to the virtual stage for our panel discussion. Yan. So, andyan na sila Miss Malu, si Sir Edwin, Charm, and Ivy. Yan. So, Miss Malu and Sir Edwin, umpisahan ko na po yung ating Q&A portion. What was one thing which struck you the most upon hearing Charm and Ivy's cancer stories? So ladies first, Miss Malu.
Ako, I guess, so young, yet so brave, and in spite of everything, so positive pa rin and grateful. So I hope going forward, hindi kayo magiging negative in any way. I know mahirap talaga, but it's so uplifting to see you went through yung hard times nyo, nag-survive kayo, you were brave, you were positive, and you're still so grateful, and you are blessed.
Thank you, Miss Malu. How about Sir Edwin?
Sa akin, it's very obvious yung gap, which is financial economic, compared with my situation here in the US. I really was touched by what I heard about the financial difficulty. Parang talagang nararamdaman ko siguro yung hirap ng mga bata. Pero lalo kong nararamdaman yung hirap ng mga magulang. The parents, yung mother ni Ivy, coins, na lang, change na lang ang natitira sa pocket nila. Yung auntie at saka parents ni Charm, umiiyak dahil hindi lang sa sakit na kanilang minamahal, kundi sa hirap ng buhay. Pag i-compare ko sa sarili ko, napaka-swerte ko kahit nagka-cancer ako sa aking treatment. Dahil dito, may insurance ako. Ang trabaho ko, nagbibigay ng insurance. Nung nakita ko yung bill yung singil ng ospital sa aking treatment, coming from sa ospital, bill sa insurance, kalahating taong sweldo ko ang cost ng treatment ko. Kung wala akong insurance, hirap din ako. Pero yun ang pinakamalaking gap na nakita ko, yung financial resources at saka yung hirap ng magulang.
Okay, thank you, Sir Edwin. So nakikita natin talaga yung you highlighted na yung isang pinaka talaga na challenge ng mga cancer patients natin ngayon, yung financial, yung access to financial support. Talagang yun ang one of the top talaga needs of cancer patients in the Philippines. So yun yung gap. Now, I want to ask naman Charm and Ivy, nakita ni Sir Edwin yung differences, no, yung gaps na yun. Pero ano naman yung nakita niyong common kay Miss Malu at kay Sir Edwin sa storya nila, sa storya niyo? So let's start with Charm.
Hello po, magandang hapon po sa lahat. Siguro po yung pagiging aware namin about our situation, yung isa sa common namin, kung kamusta ba kami, anong dapat gawin, yung pagiging positive ng mindset, siguro po yun yung mga common namin. Kasi alam mo yung nararamdaman mo kahit may halo kang takot sa sarili mo. So I think yung awareness sa sarili, sa sakit na meron kami, ay yung pagiging common po namin.
Si Ivy, anong nakita mong common sa inyo?
For me po, the first one is that we all become closer po kay God. Kapag kasi nandun ka sa situation na napaka-uncertain na lahat, all you have to do is to give up everything kay God. Doon, mas magiging magaan ang lahat. And second po, yung nagfo-focus po kami ngayon sa purpose and mission namin in life. It's like seeking and living our purpose at the same time. Yun po.
Wow, ang galing. Miss Malu, what can you say about what Ivy said? Kasi parang you said something similar eh.
Yeah, sabi nila based on research, there are 3 things that make people happy, yung fulfilling life. So one is to have a purpose, the other is to have a passion, and the third one is to give back. So tama yun. It's amazing na actually all of us, but especially kasi bata pa sila, si Charm at saka si Ivy, that you are able to give back and you're still able to stay positive and have a purpose and a passion for what you're doing. Alam mo, not every cancer survivor is like that. I have had friends na talagang naging interno, sabi ni Charm kanina, na halos hindi na siya wala, parang naging internal ka lang, di ba? Parang And I have friends who have gone through cancer, tapos parang ayaw nila, they na-ashamed sila, they don't want to admit they have cancer, they don't want to discuss it with anybody else. Pero they were not happy, they were really unhappy. So even if you have cancer, of course you're not happy, but you can be positive. You can choose to be positive. Ang feeling ko, si Charm, si Ivy, si Edwin, ako, we have chosen to be positive and not to give in to the pain and anger that you go through pag na-diagnose ka with cancer.
Sir Edwin, did you go through that phase na parang gusto mo na lang magkulong sa isang kwarto? Yung, di ba yung nagsa-self-pity ka? Ganon. Did you go through that phase, Sir Edwin?
Yeah, especially at the start, parang gusto mong isekreto kung pwede ikaw lang mag-suffer. Ayaw mo nang involve yung mga minamahal mo mga sa buhay. Ayaw mong involve yung mga kaibigan mo. Parang you go into isolation, but then later on you will realize na okay, importante yung support ng aking mga minamahal sa buhay, ng mga kaibigan ko. Kaya gradually it transformed from isolation into being more open about my disease.
So very important talaga yung family support, no, Sir Edwin, at saka yung and relationship, 'di ba? Parang it made your relationship stronger, 'di ba po? So I'd like to ask Ivy, 'di ba? Parang babae sa babae, what would you like to ask Miss Malu?
Ma'am Malu, minsan po ba sumagi rin sa isip niyo na this is it, baka dito na mag-e-end ang life ko? If yes po, what were the things or realizations sa isip niyo kapag nagpa-pop up po sa mind niyo yung mga gano'n?
Actually, nagkaroon ako ng cancer 2 beses, di ba? So yung unang-una, clueless ako. Wala akong kaalam-alam about cancer. Bahala na, go with God, just pray. So clueless. In a way, pag clueless ka, mas maganda kasi wala kang alam eh. So go lang. When it happened the second time, at saka hindi lang yung second time, may mga scare pa. When it happened the second time, alam ko na, mahirap to. You said that yourself na akala mo kaya mo yung chemo pero mahirap talaga. Mahirap talaga siya. This time I was going to lose my breast. Vanidosa ako. Noon mahilig ako sa mga plunging. And when people would ask me, bakit nagpa-plunge ka? Habang kaya pa was what I used to say. Hindi ko alam. Akala ko tatanda lang ako. I didn't realize mawawala yung breast ko talaga. Anyway, that's another story. So, the second time I was afraid. Pero hindi yung takot na I'm going to die. It was more of yung pain and hardship na alam ko will come into my life. Yun. This time, di ba sabi ko may scare na naman ako at saka hindi natin alam why my blood test results are the way they are. Medyo natatakot na naman ako. Pero this time, because I feel the last few years of my life, I have tried to really live it with purpose, with passion, and by giving back. Na if the Lord decides to take me, thy will be done na lang. But as I said earlier, nung nag-uusap tayo, Ivy, once you feel yourself becoming depressed, it's okay to cry. Pero dapat bumangon ka, you have to rise up from where you are. Hindi pwede nandun ka the whole time. And don't rely on other people to do it for you. You have to self-motivate yourself. Sabi ni Sir Edwin kanina na the others are having a hard time too. They cry with you. They have financial difficulties with you. So sabi din ni Charm yun, you have to get your own inner strength. And if you find negative people, umiwas ka. right? And if you find that the circle of friends and family around you are becoming negative, sabihin mo sa kanila, please, let's stop this. Let's be positive. So you have to find your own happiness and strength.
Yeah. What do you think, Ivy? Ano yung reaction mo doon sa sagot ni Miss Malu sa'yo?
Tama nga naman po na kung nagiging negative yung mga tao sa paligid mo, tama nga lang naman po na parang self-care din yon or parang pagmamahal nyo rin po sa sarili na lumayo sa kanila. You have that valid reason naman kung bakit. Kasi kailangan mong i-surround yung sarili mo sa mga positive people in order for you to cope up sa situation na meron ka. Kasi mahirap na tapos dinadagdagan pa nila, paano ka na lang, paano ka magiging mas matatag pa if ang nega-nega nila, gano'n po.
Okay.
Can I add?
Go,
Alam mo,
go.
there was a time na parang nagsispiral ako bababa ng pababa. And I was feeling sorry for myself. May isang kaibigan ako, sabi niya sa akin, Malut, enough, tama na. Just get out of it, stop it na. Alam mo, nung sinabi niya yon, parang tumigil ako. I was awakened and I was able to say, okay, sobra na. Let's look at the positive.
So it's also important na yung people around you know about cancer, 'di ba? And know how to help you. 'Di ba? Yun yung mga support group natin, yung mga families natin. Kailangan marunong din sila or naintindihan nila kung ano ba yung pinagdaraanan ninyo. 'Di ba? Yan yung sinasabi natin, yung information, education about cancer is not just for the patient but also for the family. And I think, Sister Edwin, do you have a question for Charm?
Yes. Pareho kami nagkaroon ng sarcoma experience namin ng cancer, but si Charm encountered that at a very early age of 13. Ako, I think I was 55. But I would like to ask Charm, na you encountered cancer at a young age and now you're kind of like mature young adult and already working. Meron bang pagkakaiba sa pananaw mo sa sakit na cancer comparing noong bata ka at ngayon na adult ka na at ikaw mismo ang nagsusupport sa mga taong mga batang may cancer?
Based po sa nakaraan ko at ngayon, Sir Edwin, yung dati po kasi, that was 2007, 2008, yung word na cancer po that time is sobrang mahirap para intindihin ng isang bata kagaya ko dati. At hindi lang sa akin, kundi sa pamilya ko rin na iniintindi nila kung ano nga ba yung cancer na yun at ano yung mga bagay na dapat gawin. Para sa akin po, dati wala kaming knowledge about cancer. Katulad nung sinabi po kanina, dati po, 2008, umuwi ako sa probinsya namin sa La Union. And parang people were asking bakit nakamas ako and parang ako pa yung nakakahawa sa kanila that time. Yung katulad ng sinabi ni Tita Girlie na knowledge and information about cancer talaga. Sobrang laking bagay nun. And hindi nila alam na sila mismo yung nakakahawa, hindi ako. And I think ayun yung isang nakita ko dati na nakikita ko na ngayon na mas aware na yung mga tao about cancer. Kung ano ba talaga yung reason bakit sila nakamas. Yan yung one thing na nakita ko. And mas malakas na yung support system ng mga cancer patient ngayon. Even na may problem pa rin sa atin sa mismong healthcare system natin, especially for government hospital. Kasi hindi naman po lahat pwedeng mag-focus sa cancer lang. So I think ayun po yung isa na parang nakikita ko na nabago sa akin ngayon sa pananaw ko na mas aware na ng konti ang mga tao kaysa dati.
Okay. So, talagang nakita mo yung value ng access to information, ano, yung kailangan talaga meron tayong impormasyon at saka yung tinatawag nilang health literacy, no, about cancer. Now, we nakita natin yung lumabas na gaps so far, di ba, yung financial gap, yung financial access, tapos yung access to information, tapos yung I now want to ask each one of you, parang what do you think was the biggest cancer care gap during your treatment journey? And what's your suggestion on how to close this cancer care gap? Siguro let's start with Ivy Brem. Ano yung nakita mong biggest cancer care gap nung ikaw yung treatment ng cancer?
Medicine and hospitalization po. Sana po here in the Philippines maging free or ma-provide na po mismo ng government yung mga chemo drugs. At maparami pa po yung mga hospital, especially sa mga provinces po, na mayroong enough equipments to diagnose cancer. Kasi malaking bagay po yun at mas dadami pa siguro yung makaka-survive sa cancer kung mangyayari yun. At mas marami rin po tayong maririnig pa na mga inspiring stories gaya nito.
Oo, yun na nga, no, narinig natin kay Kuya Charm na hindi siya na-diagnose kaagad, di ba Kuya Charm? Kasi walang equipment yung pinuntahan mong ospital. Di ba tama ba yun, Kuya Charm?
Yes po, Tita Girl.
Oo, kailangan nga pumunta from one hospital to another. Okay. So si Ivy yun. O Kuya Charm, sa'yo naman, ano yung biggest cancer care gap sa'yo?
Katulad po ng sinabi nyo, Tita Girlie, siguro yung medical equipment. Kasi kung mas early ka madadiagnose, ayun yun, advantage mo na yun eh. May pwedeng maging reason yun na hindi ka pwedeng ma-amputate. Mas maagapan yung ng chemotherapy yung mga cancer cells mo sa katawan. So I think isa yung reason, yung mismong medical equipment. Tapos yung healthcare system, katulad ng sinabi ni Ate Ivy, na kung may chemo drugs lang dati na parang nakukuha mo lang sa mismong government natin, government hospital, sobrang daling magpagamot. Kasi one of the reason kaya hindi nakakapunta, lalo yung mga kasama ko dati sa hospital, mga cancer din, is hindi sila nakakapunta dahil wala silang pang chemo. They need to go to the foundations, mga governors, mga kung saan tulong na pwede na lapitan. Minsan hindi buo yung gamot na nabibigay ng mga tao or mga foundation na tulong sa kanila kasi sobrang marami rin yung tinutulungan. Kulang yung gamot, so kailangan mong mag-provide pa rin financially hanggang sa magkakon na yung medicine mo, pang-araw-araw na pagkain mo sana, magpanggagastos mo pa sa gamot. Isa yung reason na kailangan siguro yung healthcare system natin. Knowing na minsan sa hospital, kailangan yung magsiksikan. Sobrang hirap na nung yung bed po namin dati, parang lumang-luma na, parang bibigay na po anytime. Hanggang ngayon, nakikita ko ganun pa rin naman po yung situation. So, I think ayun po yung mga dapat mabago, yung mga gaps na kailangan ayusin. And ayun po yung gusto kong makita ng healthcare system natin dito sa Pilipinas.
Okay, thank you, Charm. How about Sir Edwin?
Sa personal experience ko, actually, kung may gap man, it's very minor kasi yung mga kaibigan ko na cancer patients din, sinasabi nila sa akin, you're such a lucky dude, Edwin. You're very lucky sa experience mo kasi things went very smoothly. You had the best surgeon, you had the best hospital, you didn't have to spend much because the insurance took care of everything. And the technology was there. And so, ang gap na nakikita ko is what I see and what I heard from Ivy and Charm. And I think I have a lot of hope na maibigay siguro sa mga cancer patient that things can improve in terms of treatment. Narrow down lang yung gap, magkaroon ng good insurance, public insurance to take care of patients like us. Technology, and then also availability of insurance, and also information about nutrition. For example, like dito, may listahan ka makikita sa internet, what are the best antioxidant food. Pero mahal naman kung ano, nandiyan ang dark chocolate, blueberry, mga ganon. They can, but then I don't know kung meron sa Pilipinas na listahan ng tropical fruits na mura na antioxidants din. For example, bayabas, papaya, balimbing, things like that. So, in short, dito sa akin, wala akong makitang major gap sa aking personal, but I can relate and compare my own personal experience, yung contrast sa narinig ko from Charm and Ivy.
Thank you, Sir Edwin. How about Miss Malu?
Sa personal experience ko, siguro, kasi this happened noong 2004. So sa personal experience ko, siguro ang kulang sa healthcare, I was blessed because I have the financial resources to be able to go to good doctors. Pero in spite of that, going to supposedly the best sa atin, what I found was yung gap was yung emotional. Parang yung mga doktor, they look at it purely as curing your body, not curing yung parang yung buong tao, pati yung emotional care. Kaya yung mga question ni Ivy, emotional, di ba? That's emotional. So I wish in terms of personal journey that the doctors or the frontliners would incorporate yung emotional side ng dealing with life-threatening cancer. At hindi lang sa pasyente, pati sa let's say, yung family, like yung, as I said, yung asawa ko had a hard time dealing with it talaga. So kasama sila sa journey of your cancer. In fairness naman sa gobyerno, sa Philippines, hindi gobyerno. Nung 2004, when I was going through chemo, okay naman. The state of the art was okay. Pero nung radiation, I used to sit there kung minsan magbe-breakdown yung makina ng radiation machine. And syempre, nasa likod nasa isip mo na parang, teka muna, nagbe-breakdown yung makina and then I'm going to go there next. And baka mamaya mali-mali yung mga calibration and things like that. Pero I know today, the state of the art of yung mga medical natin ng first-class hospitals have really improved. Even yung machine for mammogram and things like that have really improved. Ang problema talagang financial. Right? We have the equipment, but only a few are able to take advantage of the breakthrough or the progress sa mga equipment natin at saka technology. So it's really, really financial. And how do we solve that? Mahirap. But I think Kite is in the right direction. Girly, you being able to change the law, unti-unti siguro, awareness will grow in terms of how much is needed to help those who don't have enough to be able to fight cancer. But sana one of these days we will find a politician who will really make it their cause to fight cancer.
Yeah, that's why we're very happy talaga when the National Integrated Cancer Control Act was signed into law on February 14, 2019. So talagang that was a change maker talaga for the health system. Hopefully, yung mga gaps na sinasabi natin ay slowly na matugunan. Kasi it can't talagang sa dami ng problema, di ba pa, hindi siya masosolve overnight. But at least, one by one, di ba, step by step, we're going to the right direction. We have questions here from the participants. So let me read out one. Kay Miss Ivy po. Tanong lang nung nag-triple IAT bone marrow ka po, talaga bang sobrang sakit ang pagtusok ng needle? Gusto ko po malaman kasi po ganun din sigurado nararamdaman ng anak ko. So, Ivy, anong sagot mo dyan?
Yes po. Tinatanong din po yan ng mga parents po ng mga bata dito sa TPH na masakit po talaga, kaya naiintindihan ko po yung mga bata kung sobra po talaga yung iyak nila at minsan ayaw na po nilang pumasok po sa treatment room kapag alam nila na sabihin sa kanila na matutusok yung likod nila. Masakit, yung once pa lang po mararamdaman mo na, kasi dito po sa amin hindi po kami gumagamit ng anesthesia. So parang andun po talaga yung sakit, tapos kapag hindi po siguro maganda yung position, hindi po siya nawa-one shot, puwedeng, second time na naman, third, or hanggang sa makuha po. Ayun po, mafi-feel mo talaga na yung, tapos sabi po nila 'pag bigla parang makukuryente ka, sabi po nila doc na parang may natamaan sa nerves mo, gano'n. Kaya wala ka po talagang choice kundi iiyak ka na lang and magpi-pray na sana makuha na yung colorless na fluid doon.
So Ivy, anong ginagawa mo para maka-cope doon sa sinasabi mo masakit na procedure? So sinabi mo iniiyak mo na lang. Ano pa yung mga iba mong ways to cope doon sa mahirap na procedure na yun?
Mag-pray po talaga. Si God lang po yung kinakausap ko every time na mangyayari yon, and kapag alam ko na po na yun na, sinasabi ko sa kanya na alam niya naman po yung burden, yung sakit, and sana gabayan din po si doc na magtutusok and yung katawan ko para kahit na ma-one shot lang or kahit na hindi man ma-perfect, okay lang, at least 'di ba, nagtutuloy-tuloy po yung treatment ko, gano'n.
Okay.
Yun
So
lang po,
talaga
nagdadasal lang po.
nagdadasal ka at saka okay lang umiyak, 'di ba? Kasi talaga namang yun yung nararamdamang pain, 'di ba? Yung
Opo.
pero kapit lang kay Lord. Okay. So, ano po yung may isa pa tayong tanong, ano po yung nararamdaman ninyo nung nalaman niyo pong cancer-free na po kayo? Okay. So, siguro si Charm. Nung nalaman mong cancer-free na kayo, let's start with Charm.
Actually po, Tita Girlie, sa amin po kasi, wala kaming cancer-free or ganun na part, unlike sa ALL, ganun. Kasi yung sa amin, sa bone, pwede siyang bumalik anytime. So, kailangan mo lang alagaan yung sarili mo. Nasasigol lang po namin na cancer survivor na kami kapag tumagal po talaga yung life namin. Kasi merong dumarating sa point na kahit 15 years or 20 years ng survivor ang osteosarcoma patient, bumabalik at bumabalik pa rin. So, alagaan lang yung sarili. Ayun po yung tanging magagawa mo lang sa sarili mo para masabi mong after ng treat mo is cancer-free ka at cancer survivor. Kasi walang ibang tutulong sa sarili mo kundi ikaw din po. Ayun.
Okay. Sir Edwin, when you heard the news, sinabi mo nga, no, you were surprised?
Yeah, hindi pa ako nakakalabas ng ospital. Pinigyan na ako ng message that I'm cured. But that doesn't stop your worry about recurrence of cancer. Sabi nga 8 years, sabi nga ni Cham, totoo nga yun, kahit 15, baka bumalik pa. In my case, 15 years na, hindi pa bumabalik. Pero after 8 years, another cancer visited me, which is cancer of my thyroid. I had both my thyroid wings removed. So nandiyan pa rin yung anxiety about recurrence. But then I was really very thankful na I went through that cancer surgery pretty well, and hindi na ako nangailangan ng chemo and radiation.
Okay. How about Miss Malu?
Never nagsabi sila na cancer-free ka na. They would say na, let's say, we can say mga 95% of your cancer is gone, mga ganon. Or when I had the mastectomy, tinanggal na namin talaga, we think it's all gone. But it was never 100%. Pero what I can remember with joy is, kasi parang grupo na kami going for radiation, yung mga nakahila. You have your schedule for your radiation, and you have people who also go there. I remember when one of them, yung last radiation niya, we were all shouting. We were so happy for her na tumutubo na yung buhok niya. And that was her last session. We weren't going to see her anymore, and she was graduating. Parang that when you finish a stage of yung, let's say, yung chemo mo, yung radiation or whatever, parang dun ang joy that you have survived so far. Pero tama si Sir Edwin na for instance, sa case ko, they made me go in every 3 months yata in the beginning. I think it was every 3 months na may check-up. And every time you go, kinakabahan ka. And then when they said 6 months naman na yon, you don't have to come in every 6 months, every 3 months, pwede na yung 6 months na gap. Na parang win din yun di ba? Pero the next time you go, kinakabahan ka pa rin. And then after that, yearly, as I said, nung 5 years, 10 years, akala ko wala na talaga. So you will, tama yung sister yung kapatid ni Sir Edwin, once a cancer patient, always a cancer patient. Pero I hope that even though you are free, you don't have any symptoms, and even though you will always be a cancer patient, you will not let your cancer define your life. Right? You have to go forward. You have to find a purpose. You still have to have passion in your life. And you should not let yourself just be a cancer patient for the rest of your life. In yung mentality mo, kailangan you find purpose and you find passion.
Talagang conquer.
Yes.
Yes.
Laban lang. May nagsabi doon sa FB Live, laban lang.
Okay, still for Sir Edwin and Miss Malu, for children with cancer, we have psychosocial support through Child Life Services. What do you think should be the intervention, if any, for adult patients who have a tendency to keep their feelings to themselves and are not very vocal with how they feel? So, let's start with Sir Edwin.
There are different types of cancer patients, as same as there are different types of personalities. Some are more outgoing, some are introvert, and the only thing I can say is I would respect kung ano yung behavior or yung attitude ng cancer patient. Some would want to be left alone or suffer or experience this in private. Others would share it with others. In our case here, I think kaming apat, we want to share it with other people so that they can be more familiar with the disease, be realistic about it, accept kung ano yung mga come to your life. So that's it. Kasi pag minsan, pag may mga kaibigan ka rin nagbibigay ng mga suggestion, oy, pwede itong may mga tea na special tea o meron ditong healer or gano'n. These are very good. People go to them, and may alternative medicine. But what's important for me is science. medicine. You can go to all these suggestions from well-meaning friends, pero do not give up medical science. Yun ang traditional conventional medicine. It's important because a lot of work has been done to improve treatment of cancer.
Opo, kasi marami po dyan kay Dr. Google. Di ba?
Yes.
Nag-meeting kay Dr. Google at tinitingnan, di ba po?
Ako yun.
Miss Malu, kayo.
I agree with Sir Edwin. Everybody is different. Ako, in the beginning, medyo I was quiet about it then. It takes time before parang sa loob mo, you're able to accept. And it will take time before you're able to tell others. And it will take a long time before you're able to share ng ganito. It's not easy, right? It takes time and each person is different. Siguro, tama si Edwin, what do you say to someone who doesn't want to open up? Ako, just be there. If you're very close to them, yung best friend ko, actually, she didn't want to tell anybody. Just be there. You don't have to give advice. You just be there. Sometimes you just sit in the room with them. And ako, I believe in the power of a hug, yung yakap, power of touch. I don't know what to say. Hindi naman ako psychologist, so I will just hug my friend when I know she's feeling down. Yun lang. Just be there.
Yung tinatawag naming healing presence. Diba? Yan yung healing presence. Just be present to your friends. Okay. So question po kay Kuya Charm. Ano po ang inyong unang naramdaman ng paggising mo putol na ang isang paa mo? At ano ang mapapayo mo sa mga bata na nasa ganyang ding kalagayan? Kuya Charm.
Yung sa akin po dati, nung nalaman ko po na mayroon nga akong cancer sa buto, inisip ko kung ano yung mangyayari. Kunwari po yung situation ko, kasi sa paa po yun sa akin. Ano yung gagawin na operation? Ano yung gagawin sa akin procedure? So nung nalaman ko po na kailangan putulin yung paa ko, doon siguro yung pinaka na down situation ko. Kasi dumating sa point na hindi na ako nakakausap Hindi na po nakakausap ng tita ko. Hindi na ako nakakausap ng kahit sino sa family namin. So dumarating sa point na kahit yung priest, yung pastor, hindi ko kinakausap. So yung situation ko nun, kahit hindi sukatin yung level ng anxiety ko nun or depression ko nun sobrang taas. Kasi ganun yung situation ko. Knowing na parang may family problem ka pa, then magkakaroon ka pa ng sakit na ganun. Pero nung siguro nung pagising ko na wala na yung paa ko, ayun yung pinakamasayang part din ng buhay ko kasi sobrang sakit ng paa ko nun. Yung pain nararamdaman ko halos hindi nakatulog. Kailangan ko ng pain reliever twice. Yun. So, kapag kainom ko nun, kapag nararamdaman ko wala na yung sakit, doon lang ako makakatulog. After 1 hour or 2 hours, babalik na naman yung pain. So, every day, ganun yung nararamdaman ko. 1 hour or 2 hours lang yung tulog ko kada araw. So, nung nalaman ko na nawala na yun, naging okay ako, naging maginhawa yung paghinga ko. Kasi, hindi na ako nahihirapan yung pagkain ko, hindi na kinukuha ng tumor. So, yung buong sustansya ng pagkain, napupunta talaga sa pangangatawan ko. And, na-extend yung life ko. Alam ko ma-extend yung life ko dahil nawala yung part na kung saan magpapaiksi ng buhay ko.
So,
ang mapapayo ko siguro sa mga bata.
Go ahead. Go ahead,
so,
Charm.
sa mga mapapayo ko siguro sa mga bata, hindi lang sa osteosarcoma, kundi sa mga bata rin na iba't ibang sakit. Siguro sa mga magulang lalo. Kasi yung bata, nandyan lang naman po sila kung ano yung ipagawa natin, kung ano yung nandiyan lang naman tayo para supportahan sila. Sa mga mommy, always na maging matatag kayo at siguro maging matyaga. Kasi yung part po ng chemotherapy, nagbibigay moody po sa mga batang may sakit, sa batang may cancer. Ako, nakaramdam ako ng pagiging moody noong kinimo ako. So, kung ano po yung nararamdaman ng anak nyo, part po yan ng gamutan, part po yan kung bakit sila nagiging makulit, kung ano-anong emotions yung binibigay nyo. Maging matatag po kayo kasi wala pong ibang paghuhugutan ng lakas yan yung mga anak niyo, kundi sa inyo lang din. Kaya ang tingin ko, mapapayo ko sa bata, sundin niyo yung magulang niyo and yung parents po, maging matyaga po sa mga anak nila kasi ayun po yung magiging reason para makasurvive din po yung kid. Pang-unawa sa ng magulang.
So, kailangan sila partner, sa journey. Hindi pwedeng, diba, nag-aaway o nagsusungitan sa isa't isa, pero talagang partner sila sa journey, ang treatment journey. Okay, may isa pa tayo, in our cancer support group, we have cancer patients who are really negative in their attitude. Please, may I ask, what can we tell them to give positive attitude po? Thanks a lot po. So, Miss Malu?
Hindi naman pwede sabihin, you be positive and then they will follow. So, ako, what I would do, again, based on research, sabi nila, alam mo, when you're unhappy, and I do this, when you're unhappy, you smile, force yourself to smile. And eventually, magiging tunay na yung ngiti mo. You will feel better. So why am I saying this? So you yourself can make yourself happier. That's why I really believe in the value of play for children. Because you cannot tell people to be positive. You have to change their focus. So for children, change their focus. For adults, also change their focus. Si Ivy, ang focus niya when she is going through pain is God and prayer. Diba? You have to be able to change yung mindset mo away from yung day-to-day. So what can you tell them? Find them things to do na has nothing to do with cancer. That would be yung advice ko. And if you're the one depressed, fake mo na yung ngiti mo because eventually magiging totoo din yung feeling mo sa loob. Fake your smile.
How about Sir Edwin? What's your suggestion?
For somebody who's negative about his or her situation, again, be para bang relate with them. Let them know that you understand what they're feeling, especially in our case, we underwent cancer. We understand that feeling and we accept it. And that's all that I think I can do. And in addition to that, pray that that person will eventually realize that there's somebody higher than himself or herself who could help. Because a person understands or realizes his or her dependence or relationship with somebody higher. And I'm talking about the divine being, God. In moments of extreme joy and in moments of extreme hardship or sadness. If they're in their extreme hardship or sadness, I think the best thing I can do is pray for them, that they will realize and feel, okay, they are closer to God now.
Prayer power, no? Sir Edwin, prayer power talaga. I'd like to address this question from the Charm and Ivy, yung perspective of young cancer survivors. Sabi dito, we all know that in the Philippines, especially in public hospitals, mahirap talaga maka-access ng medicines, especially ng chemo meds. Do you think in your perspective as young cancer survivors, the government is taking an action to somehow address or give a solution to the healthcare system? Charm.
Para sa akin po, Tita Girly, may some na na-address yung situation natin. Pero some hospitals naman hindi aware sa situation. Katulad ng ginagawa ng kahit nag-a-address ng psychosocial support for kids at yung ibang mga hospitals ay hindi aware sa kayang gawin ng isang psychosocial support na or binibigay sa mga bata. At I think siguro hindi pa masyadong na-address para sa akin, Tita Girly. Kasi wala pa naman. Oo, napirmahan na po yung cancer bill natin, pero hindi pa naman po siya nag-ooperate. Tayo-tayo pa rin naman, iba-ibang mga organizations or foundations ang nagtutulungan. But if nag-happen na maitayo man to, tingin ko mabibigyan na ng importansya, lalong-lalo na yung pangangailangan ng isang hospital. Kasi nandyan na yung hospitals eh. Ang kailangan na lang i-improve po eh. Ayun na lang yung kailangan natin. So I think malaking bagay kapag natuloy po ito, kapag nasuportahan po ito at mai-run na yung mga dapat gawin para mag-improve yung healthcare system natin.
Okay, kailangan i-push, no, Kuya Charm. Si Ivy, perspective mo.
Siguro po nagti-take sila ng action, pero sabi nga po ni Kuya Charm na hindi po siya ganun kadali. Parang mabagal po siya. Kasi makikita naman po is kahit na diyan sa Manila or dito sa provinces na madami pa po talagang kulang, like yung mga gaps po na pinag-uusapan natin. Yung tulad po na sabi ko kanina sa medical equipments dun po sa hospitalization. Parang dito po sa province na nasa province po ako na kulang pa po talaga. Na sana itong webinar po na ito ano yun, parang maging way din po para mag-take ng action na mas mabilis, ganun po.
Wow, galing, Ivy. Yes, kailangan action. Tama na yung words, di ba? Action na tayo ngayon. Okay, as we end our panel discussion, I'd just like to read some comments. Thank you, Ma'am Malu, for sharing a strong woman with a strong personality. Oh, grabe, sir. In spite of everything that happened to your family, nanatili po kayong matatag at palaban. I admire you po and your wife. God bless you. Miss Ivy, you are a fearless lady. You are beyond blessed. Fight tayo sa labang. Tapos ito yung sa Kite Foundation. Salamat. Very inspiring. Maraming salamat sa pamamahagi. Thank you for sharing your stories. Your attitude in battling cancer is very inspiring. Stay positive. Agree po ako sa sinabi ni Miss Ivy. Sana po mapagtuunan ng pansin ng government ang palawakin ng mga hospital na may kakayahan na mag-provide para sa cancer patients. Kami po ay nanggaling pa ng Cebu at pumunta lang dito sa Maynila para magpagamot ang anak ko. Same diagnosis po kay Miss Ivy. Kay Kuya Charm, I can relate because my son was recently diagnosed with osteosarcoma last November 2021. He's only 11 years old. He can't accept the possibility of the amputation of his left leg. And of course, yung gastos sa chemo and operation. Kahit sa aming magulang sobrang bigat, emotionally and financially draining, hoping and praying na malampasan din namin itong pagsubok na to. Yan. So, wow! Punong-puno ang ating panel discussion ng insights and learnings talaga. I thank you, our dear panel of speakers. And I'll see you again later. I will call you back for our group picture taking. Salamat talaga sa inyo. So, but at this point, in the interest of time, I would like to introduce our rapporteur to give us a synthesis on the gaps and possible solutions. So, Dr. Angie Siebert Fernandez is a registered psychologist by the Philippine Regulatory Commission. She is also a certified specialist in counseling and developmental psychology by the Psychological Association of the Philippines and a certified child life specialist by the Association of Child Life Professionals USA. She is the Child Life Services Manager of Kite Foundation, Inc. Doc Angie holds private practices at the pain clinics of St. Luke's Medical Center, Global City Taguig, and Manila Doctors Hospital. Friends, Doc Angie. Over to you, Doc Angie.
Thank you, Miss Gurley. Thank you for that kind introduction. And good afternoon, everyone. It has been quite an informative and I think emotional afternoon also. Thank you to our speakers for sharing your stories. Much as it is inspiring, I think it takes courage to share such stories because looking back can also bring pain. A diagnosis of cancer, no matter at what age, I can only assume is terrifying. From living the life you know to days of pricks, pokes, surgery, chemotherapy, and the many other changes that one experiences. Our speakers' stories take us back to those days for them. More than that, their stories also show the stark differences in their treatment journeys. Miss Malu was on top of the corporate ladder when her diagnosis was made. She had access to excellent doctors and treatment. Charm was a teen skater living a fun life with his friends in the province, and then facing the uncertainty of initially not having access to a medical institution equipped to care for him. Sir Edwin was going about his life working in California, and upon diagnosis was under the care of top specialists in Stanford, one of the leading hospitals in the US. And Ivy was an all-around student, a varsity volleyball player, doing well in academics, orphaned of a father, struggling with her mother to access the care she needed. The inequities in cancer care are very real. Let's go over what came out in our speakers' stories. Gaps in cancer care are evident in various aspects and none as glaring as in one's socioeconomic status. Money allows access to the best available treatment and thus lessens in varying degrees the fear and uncertainty of the treatment, its outcome, and of one's possibility of a future. Charm and his nanang needed to line up for hours, beginning at dawn, outside a government corporation to ask for financial assistance to ensure that he could have treatment. When her mother opened her purse, Ivy saw that it only contained barya, or loose change, and she knew this was not enough for her much-needed consultation and chemotherapy. Moreover, when we talk about best available treatment, it may also mean access to better trained, more experienced clinicians. I could hear Ivy reiterate how extremely scared she would be of the insertions or the IET or the BMA, whether these could be carried out effectively in one go, or will the doctor miss and make for trial and error? It would mean pain. On the other hand, we also heard of Miss Malu and Sir Edwin and their access to advanced cancer care. Aside from access to good treatment, financial constraints bring along with it other barriers, such as to transportation, access to the needed medicines, and even to nutritious food. Unlike patients who have their own transportation to bring them to and from medical appointments safely, Charm and Ivy both relied on public transportation, putting immunocompromised patients like them at a higher risk for infection, more so when seeking treatment during this pandemic. This also meant added costs. Medicines needed for cancer treatment are expensive, and the lack of financial resources can mean making do with whatever is available or not having the medication at all. there is definitely a lack of access to cancer medications. Ivy shared how terrible the side effects of treatment could be, yet they could not buy the medication that could help manage these side effects. She also mentioned hoping for nutritious and balanced diet. However, these were not within their means for the most part. Second, living in a rural or urban area can impact cancer care. A major barrier, Charm pointed out, was that in the province where he lived, there was unavailability of specific medical equipment that could have been used for diagnosis. There was a lack of screening and treatment services, thus he had to travel to Metro Manila to access these. Additionally, follow-up treatments can be affected. In urban areas, some prestigious healthcare institutions with state-of-the-art equipment and services, such as what Ms. Malu experienced and Sir Edwin had in Stanford, meant access to not only appropriate treatment, but also to supportive care. The latter, a very important thing, because as Ms. Malu aptly said, it is not only a physical journey, it is also an emotional journey. And finally, another gap that was brought up was access to information. In some provinces, internet access may be a challenge. Knowledge is power, as they say. And information not only makes you aware of what you're up against and what you can do. Knowing actually impacts on the fear and anxiety one feels, often alleviating these. It also impacts on compliance to cancer treatment and to healing. And specifically, there is also the gap of age in relation to access to information. As adults, Ms. Malu and Sir Edwin could be straightforward with their doctors. Thus, were also more likely to be educated about their disease and informed of their treatment plans. They are able to seek answers and clarify matters. In younger patients, as Charm and Ivy were, asking doctors and nurses questions, voicing their thoughts, and clarifying things they did not understand could be scary. There is the children's discomfort of asking someone in authority or a medical professional's manners that can actually come in the way too. Despite amazing significant advances in cancer treatment, there continues to be the disparity between what are best practices and the actual care provided. Inequity to cancer care is manifest not only in all corners of the Philippines, but also around the world. In our Q&A, Sir Edwin encapsulated it well when he said, "Napakaswerte ko." There is the awareness and the acknowledgement of the existence of cancer care gaps. Knowing this, we have to push ourselves to do something in ways that we can to make that step in working towards achieving equity. What can we do? Listening to stories like those of our speakers, to those of our current patients are invaluable. This allows us to be aware of and to acknowledge that these inequities really exist and they impact on survival. Then, share what you know and educate others about it. Education about cancer to promote prevention and early diagnosis is essential, as well as the identification of referral centers in nearby places. This can be made available to healthcare workers, especially in the rural areas. It is imperative to evaluate and enhance the healthcare services available in our rural areas, investing in its growth or forming partnerships with more established healthcare institutions to provide better screening and treatment services in local communities can make a difference. Partnerships with local corporations, NGOs, the local government units, and even residents of an area can help address challenges in providing transportation or fare, housing, and food. Access to psychosocial care for both children and adults is important. As one of our speakers pointed out, certain healthcare providers deal with the cancer as purely curing your body, not really a holistic look at treating the disease or healing the whole person. A diagnosis impacts on all aspects of one's life, and providing such care promotes support, lessens anxiety and fear, and aids in adjustment, all essential in one's healing. This should also be available to family members. As again, I quote Ms. Malu, cancer is not a personal journey. It is a journey with your friends and family. And lastly, for those who have the power or the influence, we use our voices to start change, especially with programs and in policies. We are grateful to what Ms. Gurley mentioned earlier, to have the National Integrated Cancer Control Act, or NICA, and other policies in place that have actually been there for a while. Yet we need to engage our leaders more to ensure that these are actually implemented. Sabi sa Q&A kanina, tama na ang salita lang, gawa na dapat. We need actions. Closing the cancer care gap is a daunting task, and it needs to be done. A quote by Thomas Monson reads, "The future will present insurmountable problems only when we consider them insurmountable." With each of us doing our share in the way that we can, no matter how small, we can overcome these problems and get closer to ensuring that every single one of us will have access to quality healthcare services. We can do this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doc Angie, for synthesizing. It was a very comprehensive synthesis and very practical call to action. Indeed, all of us here listening, participating in this webinar, lahat tayo kailangan meron tayong gawin para ma-close ang cancer care gap. Lahat tayo, kaya natin, meron tayong magagawa kahit maliit na bagay. Yung mga maliliit na bagay na yan, pag pinagduktong-duktong natin yan, ay malaki ang impact. So, pero tama si Doc Angie nung nireiterate niya, tama na po ang salita ng salita, gawa na po. Let us really implement the NICA para ho ramdam ng mga pasyente na may cancer na talagang ang gobyerno ay tumutulong sa kanila. So for our closing remarks, it is my honor and privilege to introduce one of Kite's cancer survivors. Rudy Labata holds a BS Hotel and Restaurant Management degree, and he finished a vocational course on communication science. He is now working as a customer service representative at TELUS, which is one of Kite's corporate partners. Rudy was diagnosed with ALL when he was 13 years old and was declared a cancer survivor in February 2015. Friends, Mr. Rudy Labata.
Thank you, Ms. Gurley, for the introduction, and good afternoon to everyone who has joined us today. A diagnosis of cancer, no matter at what age, is scary. To survive cancer, as we heard from the stories of our four speakers, and as I have experienced myself, much support, faith, and hope are needed to overcome the fear, the uncertainties, and the difficulties. As we close today's meaningful event, we thank you for being with us to listen to the stories and to show your support. Your presence this afternoon, despite your busy personal and professional schedules, gives hope that there are many of working together in support of individuals with cancer and in efforts to do as much as we can to recognize the challenges in cancer care and to close the care gap. It is an honor to be with my fellow survivors, and I hope that you have been inspired by their strength and their journeys as I have. And it's been a pleasure being with all of you today. I wish everyone wellness, safety and blessed afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rudy. Talaga naman, always Truly, you are an inspiration. So, friends, medyo patapos na po ang ating webinar, but I'd like to request our panel of speakers, Miss Karen, Doc Angie, and the Kite UICC Tech Team. Buksan nyo naman yung videos nyo for a group photo. I would like to thank our panel of speakers, Ms. Malu, Sir Edwin, Charm, and Ivy for your inspiring stories, Doc Angie for the synthesis and call to action, Ms. Karen for co-moderating this event, and special shout out to the Kite UICC Tech Team's hard work to present this webinar. Yes, so smile naman tayo dyan.
Okay, smile everybody. 3, 2, 1, smile. One more. Okay, thank you everyone. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Direk Ivy. So maraming salamat po sa inyong pagtangkilik sa aming webinar. Talaga naman punong-puno. Sana rin ay punong-puno ang inyong puso, ang inyong mind, ang inyong talagang damdamin sa mga inspiring stories na narinig natin ngayon. At hindi lang dapat stories, kailangan ay may call to action tayo. Forward, fighting. Okay, kaya natin yan. As we end the webinar, we share with you Kite's 30th anniversary theme song entitled Salamat Mundo. This song was created by award-winning composer Trina Belamide and produced by our co-founder Icar Castro. We thank everyone who joined our webinar today. Please stay safe and God bless you all. Maraming salamat po.
Salamat mundo, salamat mundo, maraming salamat po sa inyo. O kay ganda ng araw na to, salamat mundo, salamat mundo. Bawat pagsikat ng araw, bawat bituin sa gabi, bawat mapagkalingang yakap, dulo sa akin ay ngiti. Sasayaw ako at aawit ang puso ko. Nagmamahal saan at mahal ko rin kayo. Salamat mundo, maraming salamat po sa inyo. O kay ganda ng araw na to, salamat mundo, salamat mundo. Bawat pagsikat ng araw, bawat bituin sa gabi, bawat mapagkalingang yakap, dulo sa akin ay ngiti. Sasayaw ako at aawit, nag-uumapaw ang puso ko. Kaya ninyong nagmamahal sa akin, at mahal ko rin kayo. Salamat mundo, maraming salamat po sa inyo. O kay ganda ng araw na to, salamat mundo, salamat mundo, maraming salamat po sa inyo. O kay ganda ng araw na to, salamat mundo, salamat mundo. O kay ganda ng araw na to, salamat mundo, salamat mundo. Salamat mundo.